This lesson is on multiplying, dividing, and simplifying fractions. So we're going to look at equivalent fractions before we start. So they're fractions that mean I have the same amount of Hershey bar. Okay, so for example, this, I really have 6 pieces of my Hershey bar out of 15. But down here, you'll notice I have 2 pieces of Hershey bar out of 5. And I have the exact same amount. So if you think about it, I can say that these two fractions are equivalent. I'd like to look at it as 6 over 15. 6 is really 2 times 3, and 15 is really 5 times 3. So just like we did when we were doing exponents, the 3's will divide out, because 3 divided by 3 equals 1. This is 1 whole. So this is 2/5. So I have 2 representations for the amount of Hershey bars I have, and these give me the same amount of chocolate. This next piece is to fill in the missing number, and we're going to do B before we do A, okay? So what I'm going to do is think about multiplying by the number 1. So if I have 2/3 and I want to get something over 21 and I want to figure out what's in this box, well, I think to myself, I say, self, 3 times 7 is 21. So I'm also going to multiply 2 times 7 and get 14. Because this 7 over 7 is just the number 1, and it doesn't change the value. It doesn't change how much chocolate you get, all right? Because 7 over 7 is number 1. And 1 times anything is that anything. So I'm going to do C as well. I'm going to say to myself, self, what times 5 gives me 45? So I'm going to say, well, it's 9. So I also, in order for me to multiply by a number 1 and not change the value of the fraction, I also have to multiply the bottom by 9. And that is 54. So 54 is my result, just like 14 was this result up here. But what about A? Well, I hate to divide the top and the bottom by the same number, but it is equivalent. But a lot of math people go, ew, you're really only supposed to be multiplying. So in this case, 20 over 100 is equal to something over 5. I'm going to say, well, how do I get from 100 to 5? Well, how do I get from 5 to 100? Well, I could multiply 5 times 20 to get to 100, or I could divide 100 by 20 and get 5. So what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Mathematically, it's a little iffy, but it will work, okay? So 20 divided by 20 is 1. So if you have bigger issues here than here, you might divide by a number. And then if you have smaller issues, it's always better to multiply. But, I mean, I could reverse this and be all hunky-dory and say that 5 times 20 is 100, and 1 times 20 is 20, and not be more mathematically sound. Now simplifying fractions, you guys. This is awesome because I'm going to take the knowledge that I just had from the previous fill in the blank section and think about a common factor between 42 and 60. Well, 6 times 7 is 42, and 6 times 10 is 60. Ooh, look at, I got my 1. They're gone. So the same thing is 7/10. So the idea is to find that factor that will allow me to divide the 6 divided by 6, or the common factor that divides out to get 1. So 35 and 100. I'm going to go with 5 times 7, and 5 times 20. The 5s will divide out, and they get to be a 1, so it's 7/20. Okay, now we're going to multiply fractions. So here we go. Normally, when you multiply fractions, you multiply top times top, bottom times bottom, unless you can get some factors of 1 and get them out of there. So I'll show you both methods. This first one, 0 times 5 is 0. 6 times 7 is 42. And using our fun facts, we know that I have no pieces of pizza out of a pizza that's cut up into 42 individual pieces of pizza, so I have 0. So I would prefer you to write the answer of 0 when the fraction is equal to 0. Now what about this guy? Well, I'm going to show you guys. Look at this. This is so exciting. Now we know that 2 times 3 is really 3 times 2. And we know 2 over 2 is 1. So I can divide that out and get 1/3. The cool thing is I don't even have to do any of that manipulation. I can just go, well, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then I can multiply straight across and get 1/3. It's so exciting. There, I had to fix my 1/3. But this is the reason why, okay? So the idea is if you can avoid the big multiplication and then the big simplification, do it because it'll save you so much time. Okay, see here. Well, we all know we need to write each as a fraction. So the first one is 4 over 1 and 5/7. And then I try to look kitty corner to see if anything, and then I got nothing. So I'm just going to multiply across and get 20 over 7. Now, sometimes my math lab will allow you to keep an improper fraction. What's an improper fraction? It's when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. But lots of times it wants you to write it as a mixed number. So this is a good review. 7 into 20. 7 goes into 20 twice, with 6 left over, right? So 2 whole Hershey bars and 6/7 of another bar. Now, D is like wicked intense. Before we can do any multiplication, I have to change mixed to improper. So here I go. 2 times 5 is 10. Add 1 is 11 over 2. 3 times 5 is 15. Plus 3 is 18 over 5. And then I say, oh, let's look kitty corner, okay? I can. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 18 9 times. So what did I do? I divided out those 2s so I wouldn't have to deal with that common factor. And then I'm going to multiply across. So I get 99 over 5. Yep, you guys got it. It is an improper fraction. So for practice, let's change it to a mixed. Yeah, let's. So 5 into 9 goes once. Oops. 9 minus 5 is 4. Bring down. 5 into 49 goes 9 times. 45 with, yep, you guessed it, 4 left over. So I have 19 whole Hershey bars and 4/5 of another one. I really almost have 20 Hershey bars. Now this next one is a recipe calls for 1/3 of a cup of chopped green peppers. How much is needed to make half the recipe? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1/3 of a cup and multiply it by 1/2. And then I'm just going to multiply across, so I get 1/6 of a cup. Which kind of makes sense, because if this is my whole cup, and I need 1/3 of a cup to make the meatballs, or meatloaf, or whatever the heck it is, and then I need half of that, I just need this guy, right? I just need him. And I don't need anything else, so I'm going to have 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ta-da! Now, we're going to totally divide fractions. And the first thing we have to do is talk about the reciprocal property. If I want to talk about multiplying a fraction by its reciprocal, the reciprocal is just the flip of the fraction. And if you think about it, 2/3 times 3/2 will be 6/6, which is 1. So the cool thing is we have a multiplicative inverse going on, and 1 is the multiplicative identity. I love saying all those numbers. So we can use these properties to change a division problem into a multiplication problem by inverting the fraction. Inverting means flip it and multiply. So all we have to do is follow these steps. Okay, I'm just going to outline them. If it's a whole number, put it over 1. If there's mixed numbers, change them to improper. Then what we're going to change the problem to an inversion multiply problem. So you're going to take the first number, keep it the same, change the multiplication to division, and then invert or flip the second fraction, and then use multiplication rules. So we're going to keep the first fraction the same, change the division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. So invert, that's the invert part, multiply, change it to a multiplication. Now we're going to look to see if we can cancel anything out. Yay! 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 6 3 times. That avoids any simplification in the end. You may still have to simplify if you miss a common factor, but that's okay. 1 times 7 is 7. 3 times 3 is 9. I'm done. It's a nice proper fraction, so I'm finished. B. Put any whole numbers over 1. Change the division to multiplication. Invert or flip the second fraction. Da-da! See if we can cancel anywhere. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 1 times 20 is 20. 1 times 3 is 3. It's an improper fraction. Ay, mamaya. So you go 3 into 20. 3 goes into 26 times. So 6 whole Hershey bars, people, and 2/3 of another. Now, last but not least, C. I like to write all of my mixed numbers to improper fractions first. Don't invert, don't do anything. Rewrite the problem without mixed numbers. So this first one, 5 times 4 is 20, add 1 is 21/4, divided by, I haven't done anything with the inversion, 4 times 2 is 8, add 1 is 9/2. So now I'm free. I'm free to do it. So 21/4, division changes to multiplication. I invert or flip the second fraction, and then I look. I look for any out. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 twice, no other cancellation. 21/2 times 9 is 18. And what did I miss? Oh, I missed a common factor of 3. See, sometimes you miss them. So I didn't do that purposely. I just really didn't see it. 3 goes into 21 7 times, and 3 goes into 18 6 times. And now we still have an improper fraction. So 6 goes into 7 once with 1 left over. 1 whole Hershey bar, 1 left over out of a Hershey bar divided into 6 slices. Now you can do the multiplication, division, simplification of fractions lesson in my math lab homework. So go for it. Ask lots of questions. I hope you're doing okay.